Last week on Spectator Diff, London Spitfire versus the Mayhem.
I take London 3-1.
I think I'm going to give it to London as well.
Reverse sweep halted as the Florida Mayhem find their first win in the Summer Showdown qualifiers.
Bad Spectator. Outlaws Excelsior. I think Excelsior's going to get booty bopped. I'm calling this 3-0.
Yeah, that seems fair.
And this is the last kill that New York need, and the Brewers are out. New York, they know how to win. They take the game 5 against Houston.
Gladiators Fuel. I'm thinking Glad's 3-1.
I agree that Glads wins. I have no doubt in my mind that Glads win that game.
The champions of the kickoff clash in the mid-season madness slain by the Dallas Fuel. The game 5 goes to the Fuel.
Atlanta, Boston. Are we going to sit here and pretend that Boston's going to win this? Because
No.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
I understand the Boston Uprising, and the Boston Uprising are not very good, so...
And Atlanta Reign still have to contest the card. This is over. The Boston Uprising will take the series 3-1 against the Atlanta Reign.
We have the Outlaws and the Gladiators. Gladiators, I don't think there's any question, should win that.
Left finishes this fight off, and Houston Outlaws have denied the reverse sweep by the LA Gladiators.
Good afternoon, YouTube and people of the podcast sphere. Welcome to Spectator Diff, a new podcast from probably appropriately the most underpaid spectators in the Overwatch League. My name is Brad. Matt is over there in that box, and we decided to start a podcast to break down professional Overwatch because we have opinions, and gosh darn it, despite how bad they are apparently, someone needs to hear them. We'll be focusing largely on Overwatch League and contenders, but who knows what the offseason will bring. We'll be here each Monday, usually around 12:30, not even going to talk about today, to discuss the happenings in Overwatch esports, cover major headlines.
Well, it's 12:30 Pacific time, Brad.
Yeah, there you go. We're on Pacific
right
time because Overwatch likes to do Pacific, so we're right on time. Plus or minus 15 minutes. Anyway, we're going to hit you with some predictions, cover any major headlines, and then we'll get the hell out of here because we normally have other things to do. You can catch the streams live when we do them right here. The VODs will be available on YouTube after the fact, and then you can also download everything and do us a big favor on wherever you consume your podcasts. Now's a good time to mention you should subscribe to this channel. Hit this video with a like. That helps us out a lot. Just interact with our content in general. People, you know, that is the biggest thing you can do. It costs you nothing, costs us nothing. Big way to help us, and so you can hear all of our audio podcasts wherever you consume that, and it should be up now, right? We're live on Spotify, right?
Everything is live, yeah, so it should be on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and everything else kind of throughout the day. Also, if you watch video podcasts on Spotify, which is a thing you can do, we're there, I guess. Our VODs are on Spotify?
Amazing.
It's a new thing, I guess. I don't know.
Love it. Love to hear it. So yeah, without further ado, we got some headlines, and because we're starting a little later today, we can only bring you the freshest, hot off the presses headlines, because some things happened in our favor for news in the past couple of hours. So Matt, take it away. Let's hear some headlines.
Yeah, absolutely. Kicking it off, a little bit of contenders news. Summer Series B-side kicks off this week on Wednesday, the 17th. If you are into contenders, which, I mean, honestly, support Path to Pro, support the little guys. A lot of these guys are getting signed to the league. Half of them played in our game of the week. So, you know, there you go. Watch contenders this week. You can link your battle.net account to your YouTube and earn the contenders skins for Moira and Sigma for watching a couple hours of gameplay this week. Now we get into roster news.
Oh, boy.
Do you remember, like 2 weeks ago, Brad, when you were like, these are the rosters we're going to see until the end of the season?
All right, future me will put an edit in this later if I am mistaken. I didn't say it's definite. I said it's probably not going to be any different, and I'm eating some of those words, but you know. Go ahead.
Pepperidge Farms remembers.
Of course it does.
Anyway, New York XL dropped Myungbung. Now, the real headline of this story is that the NYXL dropped Myungbung and then forgot to tell him. Myungbong found out via Twitter that he had been dropped by the Excelsior because the Excelsior tweeted, "Thank you, Myungbong. It's been great." And he replied with question marks and was like, "Hey, what gives?" Last time I checked, I was still signed. And after a couple hours of silence, the NYXL came out and basically were like, "Hey, we screwed up. We did, in fact, drop Myungbong. Sorry." And then they picked up Ansoon J. And Ansoon J is back, formerly of Talon Esports this season, Toronto Defiant season before, now playing with the NYXL.
This kind of thing has been happening like pretty regularly across. It's been specifically with the APAC teams, but it's happened a few times in NA as well, where this year in particular, where they've just kind of dropped players and not told them. This happened literally a couple weeks ago. We saw it with who else? Oh, we saw it with Shockwave. We saw it with I'm struggling to remember here. It's been a couple of teams that have done this season. But yeah, I don't know what the deal is. Like, I don't know who is in charge of these press releases, but there's definitely like some major disconnect within the teams themselves with like the GMs and their social media people, because that's not okay. Like, none of this is okay.
Right. I know a lot of people on Twitter have been super mad at the social media managers for New York. As a former social media manager myself, let me tell you, the people who tweeted this had nothing to do with it. The people who tweeted this got an email that said, "Hey, you have to tweet this at 3:40," and they said, "Okay," because that's how being a social media manager works. So you can direct your irritation and disappointment elsewhere. I feel real bad for the social media managers. I've been in that position where, whether it's legal or corporate or management says, "Post this on social media," and then you catch the heat for it.
That's even worse though. Then if that's the case, like, that's so much worse, because who then is like dropping the ball and not like telling the player like, that should be at least a day, like a full 24 hours before the press release goes out. Like that.
Yeah.
That is unacceptable.
You would absolutely think that too. And I think, we talk a lot about how, like, boy, wouldn't it be great if Blizzard treated Overwatch League better? I think that the lasting effect of Blizzard not giving a ton of love to Overwatch League is Overwatch League organizations feeling like they don't have or need to pass a lot of love downwards. And so I think that, they assume, well, this league is kind of running through shady back channels, so we'll run our teams in the same way. And it bums me out because, yeah, it sucks, man. It sucks real bad. Yeah. Moving on, we got some more roster news. Houston picked up two new players this week. One new tank, one new support. Doge and Lep. Doge was formerly of O1 Esports, Lep formerly of Northwood University. On the Overwatch League player tracker, he was listed as O1, but I don't think he was on their roster, so I don't know. But Lep, main support, Doge, tank. We don't really have words for those anymore. Now, originally, Houston had said, "Hey, we picked these guys up, but we are planning on keeping an 8-man roster." That came after they had gone around the league and said, "Hey, does anybody want to buy Iris, Pelican, and Piggy? By the way, we want to keep Pelican and Piggy together." And then they dropped Piggy. So after all of that, they have picked up Doge and Lep. They have dropped Piggy and still have Pelicans. So I don't know if we're going to see more roster moves from Houston. I suppose if they were really wanting to keep Pelican and Piggy together, it could be like a friendship thing and Pelican might leave, but I don't really know. I will say Doge and Lep both looked pretty good this weekend. I think I'm really used to seeing contenders players come up to Overwatch League and just get like caught on their heels in their first couple of games. And I didn't feel like Doge and Lep looked that bad, but Brad, what do you think?
I mean, I think they had a really standout first game, all things considered. We're going to talk about that first game here in a little bit. I think they looked very, very good. I think, honestly, Doge is a great addition, especially in this Junker Queen meta. And while I still maintain that Iris wasn't a problem for Outlaws, the pickup with Lep was just as good. Lep clutched out a different game this weekend as well. So like I can't really fault the decision. I have questions about letting Piggy go just randomly last night. I guess yesterday I found out about it last night, but like I have questions about that. But you know, there are plenty of teams that will likely pick him up. There are a few really, really good choices just kind of out there right now, and there's at least one team who's gonna need to do something. So we'll talk about that in a second with our next headline. But yeah, I mean, I don't knock the decision. It could have been worse. That's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah, I mean, Jake's been saying all season he's got something cooking up over there, and I think Doge and Lep, I keep calling them Loge and Depp, but Doge and Lep, I think are a really good addition. I mean, they have some synergy, and honestly, I think Lep is a better Lucio than Lastro, excuse me.
Yeah.
And we will talk about that when we get to the game of the week.
Well,
now, Brad mentioned we have another. Oh wait, do you have more to say?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like on the Houston front, while we're here, I mean, Dante's been very vocal about his current disdain for the meta, and he's been vocal about the team changes as well. So I'm wondering if that's the signal that he might be about to leave the team as well. If there's some like conflict between him and Jake, I'm not really sure. Jake's not an idiot. He's certainly one of the more I'll say competent coaches in the league that we have right now, especially on the NA side of things. So I do fully anticipate he has something like in the works that he's planning. I will be curious to see, considering how vocal Dante has been lately about Overwatch 2 and how he feels about it. I don't know how long that means he will be around. So, you know, maybe they stick with Pelican and Merit, and maybe Dante's the next to go. Who knows? We'll see. But that time will only tell, because we're certainly not seeing the end of the roster changes, even for the season.
Yeah, and I guess to spin that yarn a little further, I don't see where else Dante fits in, right? Like, Dante's Doom has been really, really good. Pelican and Merit have looked pretty phenomenal on DPS. I don't think you need Dante back on DPS. I don't think it's bad to keep him on your tank line, but to your point, if he doesn't like the meta, if he doesn't like 5v5, he certainly isn't going to find a new role on this Outlaws roster to fit into. So,
well, it's like we were saying
maybe he
last
is going to
week.
be the one to walk.
It's like we were saying last week about a lot of, or was it last week? Maybe 2 weeks ago. I can't remember. But we were talking about it at one point where the veterans right now are kind of the, you know, the outspoken ones in a sense. They don't necessarily, some of them haven't adapted well to the changes. And, you know, some of the pros, some of the longest standing pros that we had in the league got out before this 5v5 thing even happened, because they knew it wasn't for them entirely. So, you know, maybe Dante falls into that category as well. There's certainly, if he doesn't like where things are now, he's not going to find necessarily another team. There's not another team who necessarily needs him. Because there are plenty of Contenders players that are fresh and young, that's the thing, that have a much longer career trajectory at this point, that they can be picked from at this point. So who knows? I think we might be, again, I think he might fall into that retirement category in the not so distant future.
Yeah, that sounds believable. All right, so let's move on here. We were supposed to record at 12:30 Eastern Standard Time, but literally because we found out that this headline was coming, we decided to delay our recording for 3 hours.
Generous.
And as of 3:45 Eastern Time, Washington has dropped Mag. So Washington, I guess I probably shouldn't call it a drop. It seems like maybe a trade to Boston. However, it doesn't seem like Washington got anything for that trade, so I don't think you can call it a trade. Washington dropped Mag. Boston picked up Mag. Brad, thoughts?
Why?
Yeah.
Why? After the performance that Mag put on this weekend, why?
Yep.
What are they thinking? That is, I mean, that is almost as questionable as where he moved to under the circumstances. I'm trying to do this as concisely as possible. Mag has never looked better this season, number one. Number two, Boston has never looked better this season, and Punk was doing phenomenally. They don't need two Junker Queen players. Nothing about this makes any sense. That being said, we were talking about where might Piggy go Piggy could go to, conceivably to Washington, but we haven't seen Piggy's Junker Queen. Like, I don't know. I don't understand this roster change at all. I don't get it. I don't see any benefit to anybody at this point. Other than that, now Boston has 2 phenomenal Junker Queen players who are both similarly aggressive. So,
yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. I have talked enough about the Washington Justice this season and about how I think the Washington Justice have real organizational problems. Does dropping your main tank solve organizational problems? No. And I think this is weird. I mean, I agree. Like, Piggy could go to Washington, and Happy and Piggy played together on Houston and played pretty well together. But Piggy's hero pool seems much more similar to Kalios's hero pool than it does to Mag.
correct.
Like, I don't think of Piggy playing a lot of Ball, playing a lot of Queen, playing a lot of Doom. I think of Piggy more on Sigma, which is what Kalios is for. So I don't have any idea what goop is in the veins of Washington, but I don't see the game plan.
Well, I mean, so like as far it's like they're hedging their bets for the future because they didn't really have a main tank because on Houston, Piggy was playing the Winston and sometimes the Rhine and getting diffed on them. Fair is fair, but like, I mean, Washington doesn't really have that main tank presence. They have a lot of off tank with Kalios, but all of that aside, the meta's not either of those things right now. The meta is Junker Queen, which we will talk about in a minute, I mean, more in depth, but the meta is Junker Queen. So why they're giving up their best Junker Queen player, presumably, obviously we didn't see Kalios do it, but why they're doing this now after the performance where they just got a win substantially against Paris, like, I don't understand why they would just toss that away right now at the start of this meta.
Yeah, I don't get it either. And I mean, I guess looking back to the kickoff clash, Mag was on some Winston and it looked fine, but his synergy with Decay was never really there. And as Washington does, Decay's the ace in the hole, and they're going to build a team around Decay. So, you know, if Decay and Decay and Mag aren't hitting it off, then maybe that's that. But I think the flip side of this, obviously Washington has either no idea what's going on or knows everything that's going on, one or the other. The team that I really have questions about is, like, what the hell is Boston going to do with Piggy? Because there's no way they pull Punk, right? Or not Piggy, Jesus Christ. What is Boston going to do with Mag? Because there's no way they pull Punk, right? That's what I was trying to say. Like, Punk looked really good this weekend.
All right, so my thoughts are that Mag, oh my god, I really don't know. I feel like for Boston, the one thing that Mag does is provide, again, sort of a main tank presence that Boston didn't have, because Boston only had Punk. They only had Punk. They only have Punk, now that I'm thinking. I'm like trying to backpedal all of the rosters in my brain right now, but like, they only have Punk as a tank player. So I understand having a secondary, and now having 2 Junker Queens is not necessarily the worst. Again, 2 competent Junker Queens is not the worst position to be in right now, and at least with a little extra flexibility from Mag, it gives them something else to play off of if the meta should shift. But outside of that, like, in the current meta, they're gonna stick, at least in theory, they should stick with Punk for a few weeks until Mag gets scrimming with the team and they can figure out who has the best synergy in the meta. But Punk didn't look bad. So I can't really, like, I mean, it could go, it could go either way. I don't really know. I have very little dog in this fight because this whole weekend has been sort of a blur of insanity.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, just to make sure we're saying the right things, Boston does have another tank. I don't think we've seen them play. I had to pull up their roster because I didn't know this. Boston has Itzel.
Oh.
I don't think we have seen Itzel play.
That's got to be the next.
If we have, I don't remember.
That's got to be the next move then. They're probably. I wouldn't be surprised if they drop Itzel because Boston doesn't have a particularly high budget. So
Yeah.
I would not be even remotely surprised if that happens to come to fruition for them. I don't really know.
Yeah, because Mag is going to be their 9th roster member, because they have Punk and Itzel and Punk on tank, and then they have 3 support and 3 DPS. They have MCD, Faith, and Crimzo, and then Victoria, Valentine, and Seeker all on damage.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, again, this will not be the last of the roster changes that we see this season, probably not even this split. Because there's got to be a lot of teams scrambling to fill some voids after everything kind of got flipped on its head this weekend.
Yeah, I'm sure. All right, well, I want to talk about our game of the week. Before we do that, I have one more piece of not competitive Overwatch League related news for you. I got my nouns mixed up. It doesn't matter. Hey, you're running out of time to buy loot boxes. You nerds want to buy loot boxes, play the lottery, have a gambling addiction, give Blizzard your money? Can't anymore after August 30th. So when Anniversary Volume 3 wraps up, which again is on 8/30, it has been announced that players will no longer be able to purchase loot boxes. You will still earn loot boxes just from regular old naked Overwatch play, but you will no longer be able to spend your precious hard-earned real-world money to buy chances in a fake lottery. Sorry.
Have you been picking up anything interesting with this recent event, Matt?
Sure have not. Sure haven't gotten anything.
Oh. Do you already have the Tracer skin? Do you already have the really awesome cartoon Tracer?
Here's my thing, right? Is I already had all of the unlockable event skins, so that was like whatever. The new remix skins, I never spend any tokens to buy anything until the very end of the event, on the very small percentage chance I get something in the loot box. So it's possible that I get something cool before it's done. If not, I'll buy the Tracer skin. And I actually missed a couple of skins from Remix 2. So, I need to get the Ana Night Owl skin and the Hog Purple Toxic skin.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll definitely grab those. And I need to buy the Genji skin because this Genji skin is dope. Even
Power
though I don't
Ranger.
play Genji. Yeah, I love him. I want a team of all Genjis and the different Power Ranger skins. It'll be great.
Well,
It'll be lots of fun.
In only a few short months, you'll be able to have that for the low price of $50. So each.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Hurts real bad. All right, let's move on to a game of the week.
Indeed, which is the blowout that ended up being the reverse sweep of Houston Outlaws versus the New York Excel. I'm pulling it up right now. I have it muted so that any ads that should pop up we don't get yelled at for. Game of Zavik? Oh, well. Where's the hello window? Please?
What happened?
It's not showing up. Hold on.
Oh,
I'll fix it. I will fix it. Technical difficulties,
Fix
people.
it, Brad. Fix it.
Well,
hey, here's a great opportunity. I'm going to talk to you, the audio listener. You out there? You're not looking at my face. You looking at my audio video. That's really cool of you. So we're going to upload this thing day of recording, and it's probably going to take a little while to go live because processing takes some time. And we're putting the videos on Spotify. So if you're an audio listener, you want to see the video, YouTube or Spotify. However, if you're a video watcher and you're like, I would love it if I could listen to this on my commute to work. Well, now you can. Now you can, friends, wherever you get your podcasts. And then whenever you find us on a podcast, you got to be cool and rate and review us because just like liking and thumb upping videos goes, every website needs their buttons clicked. So click the website button of choice for you. That'd be really great. I'm running out of things to vamp about.
You don't need to
almost
vamp.
done adjusting this window.
Yeah, I mean, I have it up and it's functioning, so we're like Gucci Mane for the most part.
We got there.
There we go. Let's make it the right size. Perfect. Okay, so one of the predictions that we got just monumentally wrong, as you saw in the intro video for the week, was the New York Excelsior versus Houston, a reverse sweep that honestly I watched in real time and couldn't myself believe. This is probably a major reflection of the current meta, at least in part. Actually, I know it is, because the new Junker Goats meta has completely and utterly shattered everyone's expectations. It has given a voice to teams who didn't really have one going into the Summer Showdown. So let's dive into this a little bit. Obviously, the first two maps go to Houston, and we saw a breakout performance and a first well, a welcome performance for both Doge and Lep. Thank you. Brain not functioning, still doing back end things to make this work. Anyway.
Oh, no, Brad, you're on the highlight video and not the full VOD of the game.
Wait, really? You're kidding me.
Yeah, I'm not kidding you.
I'm sad.
Click the link in the Google Doc. It'll take you right there. Click the 0446 link. It'll open right up.
Boom. Okay, it's opened right up. Now I have to just switch the window, so.
Yep. Hey, audio listener. It's me. I'm back again. This is where the full disclosure comes out that because we can put our videos on Spotify, it means I don't have to edit the audio, which for me and my life makes it much better. But for you, the audio listener, of whom I care about so deeply, you'll have some moments like this. But hey, I mean, we're a YouTube show, so watch on YouTube, I guess.
And I mean, if you want to see our mistakes in real time, that is. Why is this being? Okay, fine, whatever. Pop out window. Those are the show notes. That's fun. Here we go.
Close. Closer.
What?
That's the show notes.
What the? It's like straight up just like it has selected the window, but it is not showing the. Oh my god. Okay, cool. We'll do it this way then. We'll just fucking. I'm so mad.
Everything is awesome. Everything is cool when you're part of the team. Everything is awesome.
There you go.
There it is. Hey, I see a game.
Excellent. Boom. Boom. Not the cleanest it's ever looked, but that's fine.
That's all right. We got there.
We did get there.
Hell yeah, dude.
All right.
Hell yeah.
All technical difficulties aside.
So, what you were talking about is the meta and how this new meta, deemed by the casters this weekend as Jotes, Junker Queen Goats, is at least the law of the land in Overwatch League right now, and also has given some real viability to teams who have not shown up for the first two tournaments of Overwatch League. New York Excelsior, very much on that list. Looked really, really good against Houston. Houston picks up these first two maps pretty handily, but this meta is really something, isn't it, Brad?
Honestly, I mean, it's borderline toxic. I've made like little jokes about it this weekend. I've called it, I've called it spawn camp meta, touch the spawn door meta. Like, it is borderline toxic, and it's also just like impossible to analyze to some degree without like a more without an overhead view of the teams. It's moves just so unbelievably quickly. The teams are so clumped together that depending on how the producers or what view the producers decide to show us, very hard to make accurate calls on who's out of position, unless it's egregious. And it's just, oh my god, it was cool for the first day, and then after that, I was tired of seeing it, because it's the exact same thing on every single map. We had speculated that maybe we would see still some Sigma and some snipers on maybe the longer sightline maps. We saw a very brief moment of Rush, and some really weird oddities throughout it this weekend, but generally speaking, I'm just like, I'm not a fan. I know the pros have some negative thoughts about it as well, and I don't know. I'm just like, this is what we're going to see for this stage, and hopefully this stage only. Something's got to give, because the players will riot if they do this for the rest of the season.
Yeah, so for those who are maybe a little newer to competitive Overwatch, or, don't know a ton about meta names or anything like that, welcome to my world. When I started watching Overwatch League, it can be really confusing. So let me explain something to you. If you hear Overwatch League commentators, players, community members talking about a team composition called GOATs. They are talking about a 6v6 composition from the before times when there wasn't role lock, and you could show up to a game with 3 tanks and 3 support players. And they called it GOATs because it was the greatest of all time and nobody ever died. GOATs isn't that much fun. It's kind of just like, it's what I would equate to like the wall of death in a mosh pit, where like it's fun once and then you're stuck in it, right? Like, it's just people running at each other, waiting for someone to die. So moving on, where we are now is in what's called JOTS, which is GOATs, but with Junker Queen. Obviously, instead of 3 supports, you have 2, and instead of 3 tanks, you have 1. But the whole idea is still built around this: don't let anybody die, just unlimited amounts of sustain. And with this composition, what we're seeing a lot of is Junker Queen with double main support in Lucio and Brigitte. So you've got Junker Queen, who has Commanding Shout, which gives 200 to Junker Queen and 100 HP to everybody around her. Then you've got Lucio with AoE heal and AoE speed boost. And you've got Brigitte with AoE heal. So it's just a lot of sustain. It's a lot of damage output. It's not a lot of deaths. As you hear us complain about JOTS for the next 3 weeks, now you know what it is.
And really, like, ultimately, the original GOATS meta and the now subsequent Junker GOATS meta, it all stems from the AoE effects. It's the reason these teams have to play so closely together, and it's the reason that nothing dies. You have Brigitte and Lucio both providing AoE healing, AoE speed boost. You have healing and speed boost, and in some cases anti-healing coming from the Junker Queen. It's just non-stop AoE, non-stop just unlimited sustainability, and that's why we're seeing these fights. One of 2 things has been happening with teams in these fights: either they get steamrolled immediately, or the fight goes on for 5 minutes and nothing happens. We saw that a little bit with Shock versus Washington, where they literally just bounced around on push for at least like 3 minutes, and no one died and no one killed anything. They just like hopped around, did nothing. And it's so, again, it's so difficult to watch, and it's very difficult to analyze, because nothing really happens, nothing really changes. And so, I really hope we don't see this for more than a stage. I really don't.
Yeah, so as you can see on our screen, we're moving into round 2 of map 1, which we didn't say it for the audio, but map 1 is Nepal. It's control map. And New York takes the first round. So Houston comes out on the second round. What I am referring to as the Frozen Jogurts comp. Frozen Jogurts.
Absolutely not.
Jotes with a May.
Absolutely not.
Jotes with a May, we're calling it Frozen Jogurts. Yeah, Frozen Jogurts. So Houston comes out running this Frozen Jogurts comp. And I am really curious what your thoughts are about this May. Because when we first started hearing about Jotes in general, and we were watching a lot of competitive, I was trying to think of, what do you use to counter this setup? And I really like the May pick for 2 reasons.
Go ahead.
1, you get the slow, which I really, really like. And 2, you get the wall off. And that wall off for isolation becomes so important in this meta, because if you wall somebody off with a May wall, suddenly they don't get the Lucio healing, they don't get the Brigitte healing, they don't get Commanding Shout if they're walled off when it goes, and you can dive and burn them down before the rest of the team can counter dive you.
So you pretty much hit the nail on the head. Like, the May, while it's not, I don't think we're going to see much of the May when it comes to this meta, largely because she's fulfilling the role of the Genji, which her damage output just isn't quite the same, and she doesn't have the same assassin capabilities as the Genji, which ultimately we see more value coming from the Genji because the Genji can get into the backline and take out a Lucio or a Brig very quickly with that instantaneous burst damage, and that becomes very important on. It works. The Mei works on close quarter maps like this, but when you start to get into the bigger sightline maps and things that don't have such tight areas such as Nepal, that's when you really kind of lose the value in the Mei. In this case, it works for the Outlaws because you're right, the slow does kind of put the brakes on the Junker Goats meta to some degree, and the wall kind of gives you the, you're stuck in here with me now situations where when you have a situation where basically whoever's queen dies first, that team usually, quote, loses the battle. It allows you the opportunity to get that first high value pick in a different sort of way. Works here because of the close quarters, but anywhere else it wouldn't quite work so well because you can't really force as much of a split in the team without these huge choke points, without these small rooms.
Yeah, I think it is really map dependent, but I do like its viability.
It's certainly
here.
different. It's certainly something different. That is the one positive that I will give it, is that's very, very different, at least, well, moderately different from everything else we've seen.
Right. My biggest downside with the Mei, though, the counterpoint, is that it gives Sojourn something to charge off of.
Right.
So in the typical Jotes comp, like, the only shield you have is Brigida. And so honestly, you're just not giving Sojourn much to charge rail off of. And if you have Mei Wall or even Mei Ice Block, suddenly Sojourn has something to charge rail off of, which when you're looking for high value picks, if your Lucio is bleeding or your Brigida is bleeding and your Mei puts up a wall to help you get out and a Sojourn can hit 100% headshot rail, then it almost becomes counterintuitive. But I think that's kind of missing the forest for the trees with how much benefit you get on maps that have those small rooms and those choke points.
Right, and it does come down to who your opponents are and who your DPS is, because in this particular case, I think Flora is the weaker of the two Sojourns in this specific instance, and I think they can almost, at least at the time, they could factor in, giving up some of that charge in order to, maybe get that first high value pick. We stopped seeing the Mei so much on this third map here, but that has something to do with it as well. I don't think they would get the same value out of the Mei against teams like, I don't know, maybe the Shock or even Atlanta in certain circumstances when, Kai's popping off. So it is entirely like knowing your opponent and knowing what you can get away with as well. And I think they were also testing the waters a little bit. Oh my goodness. Now that we're seeing, Merritt just get clipped in the head. Yeah, so that's kind of where I stand on that. I like to see the Mei, but it's so situational, and that's the problem ultimately with Goats, right? The reason it was the greatest of all time was because you had to play the mirror comp, and if you didn't, you just sort of lost 90% of the time, unless your team was slightly more coordinated with other things. But that just really is ultimately why people talk about Goats and are going to probably talk about this Junker Goats meta in similar vein, that it's just negative connotation. Because you play the mirror or you lose most of the time.
Yeah, so we've moved, for the audio listeners, we've moved past the second phase. Houston won the second round of Control. We're on to the third, and here's my last question, variance on Jotes meta for now. What do you like better, the Ashe or the Sojourn? Do you take the rail? Do you take the dynamite?
It's entirely situational again. I think in this meta, generally, broadly speaking, I think the Ashe has more value because you just don't have anything to charge up that railgun. Sojourn's entire gimmick is her railgun. It gets so much value so quickly, but only really when there's shields and things to charge off of. Without that, she's just really got her area denial, which isn't nothing, especially when teams are playing so close together. But damage for damage, pound for pound, I think Ashe has more value and has a lot more sustained immediate poke damage. So especially with a Genji on the other end to deal with the assassinations, I think there's more value in the Ashe. But again, it depends on team personality and team personnel. That's full stop.
This is kind of nuts what we're about to see on screen right here. So Flora and basically Flora's Bob are about to get a team wipe. And I'm really glad that this lined up so well, because I want to talk about the value of ultimates between Ashe and Sojourn in this comp. I think that Bob is a much stronger ultimate in Jotes than Overclock is. And I say that because I think Bob does a lot for you when you are up against a team that doesn't have a lot to shut that Bob down. I mean, you have Genji Reflect. Other than that, you're just trying to turn around and burn him down with headshots. However, you've got support in Brigitte who can't headshot. And I don't dislike Overclock. I think Overclock is a great ultimate, and you can get a lot of awesome pop-offs. But I would rather see a team... Let me take that back and start that sentence differently. I think a team that uses a major support ult to counter an Overclock is in a better situation than a team that uses a major support ult to counter Bob. Because Bob is still going to be there putting in that damage, but Sojourn's damage output, even with Overclock, unless you're hitting headshots out of the big death ball group, I don't think you have the damage output to make that ultimate worth it when you lose the zoning power that Bob has.
I think I am inclined to agree with you, and I'm changing sort of my stance a little bit. I was thinking about it as you were saying it, because you are correct. We definitely saw a lot of high value Bobs thrown this weekend. We saw some duds as well. Good lord,
we sure did.
Wow. Looking at you, Atlanta. I think in this particular meta, especially when you have so much sustain power and so many things that can immediately be popped to counter the Overclock, Bob just does get a little bit more value if you know exactly like how to place him and where to zone it. Because at a bare minimum, right? At a very bare minimum, you get zoning out of him. At a very bare minimum, you get point contest and zoning of some degree. At a maximum, you get a couple picks out of it, because if you throw him right, you can get you can force enemy position to where they either have to broadside your team or broadside the Bob. And so at the end of the day, that gets more value than the Overclock. Obviously, if you have a cracked DPS player who can just click heads all day, provided they can pull it off before Junker Queen has a chance to heal the team, or before, a rally or a beat gets popped, sure. But ultimately, those three things on their own right are enough to just shut down the value. And also, let's not forget the hardest counter to Overclock, which is just hard cover. We saw that a handful of times as well. I think in this match, maybe? I can't remember. Maybe not this match, but definitely in a few others. The one that stands out to me was it was on the Monaco map. I can't remember who was playing, but it was an Overclock that was pulled, and the team just literally like funneled into a room and just waited. Like, yeah, you can play around it with hard cover so easily that I think definitely in the meta as it stands right now, the Ashe just overall has probably more value.
Yeah, I feel that same way. You can go ahead and jump to Midtown if you want. That's map 2.
Yeah.
For those listening on the audio feed, Houston did win map 1, picked it up in round 3, moving on to Midtown, which is a new map, and I don't remember if it's hybrid or escort, but I'm pretty sure it's escort. And I'm trying to click ahead, and I'm stuck in an ad, and I'll figure it out.
I'm gonna toss this towards the big Houston time bank, because there's not much to really talk about at the beginning of this.
No, there's not.
We saw some returns of the infamous Charles here in a few minutes, so I'm gonna back it up a few minutes before that. But this was Houston's attack with a massive time bank after capping first point. And this was the start of their round, yes?
Yes.
Had to have been, yeah. So they started this round off, and anyway, I'll allow you to begin on the talking points here.
Yeah, for sure. So this was the first map that I noticed. It happened in the first map too, honestly. I just didn't really notice or talk about it. That Lastro had moved to Brig after we've been seeing Lastro on Lucio all season to put Lep in on Lucio. And I felt like this map was a phenomenal map for Lep. You don't see a lot of them in the kill feed, to be honest with you. However, we're talking about this deathball comp, right? And what you were just saying with Overclock, where it can be countered so well with hard cover. Well, you've got Lucio pump it up speed boost that stacks a 30% speed boost on top of Junker Queen commanding Shout's 30% speed boost. And that Lucio suddenly becomes your way to get to hard cover.
Right.
And I think Lep's navigation of the Midtown map is so good. I mean, he barely touches the ground. He is constantly with the right teammate. His peel is really good. His dive is really good. You don't see Lep going down first very often. I was really, really impressed by Lep on Midtown.
Yeah, I maintain that I think he was a good pickup. I still don't think Iris was the problem, but we are seeing one of the big things that we're seeing now, especially with the recent changes in rosters across the board, is teams that have picked up a quality main support, and particularly a quality Lucio, have honestly, that's been a lot of the difference maker for them in a lot of ways. And Lep came in clutch for them as well against who was it? Against the Gladiators.
Yes. Yeah.
A day after this. So like it's one of those things. Like he showed up very, 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 very well on his first match in the Pro League. So I have nothing bad to say. We're about to watch a very egregious. I don't know if it was. I can't remember if it was egregious or not. But we're watching. Oh, yep, nope, yep. Everybody vacates point for New York.
Yeah, it's some relative egregery. I would call the egregery relative. I do want to talk a little bit more about comps. I said I wasn't going to, but I think that something that was pointed out really well by Leg Day while he was casting this match is the value of boops.
Yeah.
Right? Because boops work in a similar way to the Mei wall, where if you're trying to isolate somebody and or separate a teammate from a source of healing and or separate a source of healing from its teammates, those boops become really, really important.
Correct.
And so you've got one from each support, what with the Lucio boops and the whip shots from Brig. But when you go back to that Ashe versus Sojourn debate, you pick up another boop from Ashe, which is pretty cool. And you pick up a boop from Bob if you aim it well. So I don't necessarily know that the high value of boops is showcased here on Midtown because New York just looked bad on Midtown and Houston looked really good. So, call it what you want. But I do think that is something when it comes to being a spectator of the Jotes meta, what are you looking for? What makes the game entertaining? What decides plays? And obviously positioning, but a lot of it is cooldown usage. Who uses shout first? Who uses speed boost first? And I think that there is even more value in those micro details, like who got booped and to where. Did somebody get booped behind half cover? Did somebody get booped into a room? Like, did a boop set up a big isolation dive? Really, this whole comp is based around target focus. And so if you can set up a good boop, then that can really define your target focus.
I mean, I agree. I think we're really starting to see which, and it's probably going to come to fruition a little bit more as the weeks go on, but we're really seeing what teams have the best communication and are able to just sort of focus down targets. That we saw a lot of teams, especially this weekend being the first, where, you know, they didn't have. It almost felt like they had ADD when it came to their target focus, and they were all over the place, which is easy to do in a meta like this because it is so brawly and it is so fast moving. But I think as the weeks go on, you're really going to see teams focus in on just individual targets, and the better coaching will show itself as well, because the coaches are going to be able to identify, all right, you need to get so-and-so out of the fight first. You need to find a way to break through this player. And that's really going to kind of like play into, oh my goodness, I'm just watching this now, freaking Flora going off. But you're going to start to see a lot more coordination with teams, or a lot less. I mean, this is one of those comps that really highlights certain flaws, and a lot of times it's with the minutia when it comes to tactics. As for the Lucio and the Boop meta that we were talking about just briefly, it's a double-edged sword, right? You would think in a meta like this, it would really play to the favor of teams like Gladiators who have Funny Astro. But we're finding as this goes on that those solo, almost one-trick players who are just, you know, they're prodigious when it comes to their Brig or Lucio play, it's almost hurting them because you need to be more in contact with your team more often than not. And so while the boops can be high value, you have to be in league with your team as well, so that so that the follow-up is there.
Right. While we were watching games this weekend, you and I were texting, and we joked a little bit about, like, bring back Moth. This is Moth's meta.
Right.
Yeah. And I don't think that anybody needs to bring back Moth, no offense to him, but I do think that when it comes to, like, really high value Lucio one tricks, I would take Moth over somebody like Funny Astro, because Moth as a Lucio is somebody I think of as really taxing the team around.
Yes.
And almost playing too safe as a Lucio, where Funny Astro is the antithesis of that, in a player who is a super aggressive Lucio and is always diving in, is leading your dive and healing your tracer. So, you know, I do think that we're going to see a lot of value come out of players with higher game sense, as opposed to higher pop-off potential, which is why I think Lep looked so good this weekend and Funny Astro didn't.
Yeah, I don't attribute it as much to the game sense, because at this level it's so high across the board, but it is really the Reddit Lucio versus the team Lucio at this point.
Yeah, it sure is.
Yeah, and oh my goodness, just Merit, my God, man. I'm just now, I haven't rewatched this match since it happened live, and I forgot about some of these just insane moments from the team. But I think, shall we go to where it starts to flip?
Yeah, let's do it. Honestly, this map is boring. Outlaws wins. There you go.
I mean, and they win off of a massive amount of mistakes from Excel. So we're going to take this to Dorado, and I think we're going to take this all the way to Houston after Houston's attack, because honestly, after Houston's attack, it looked pretty bleak for New York. Houston
it sure did.
Finished with 4 minutes in the time bank, and they steamrolled New York all the way through the first 3 points. So it looked like they were going to do a 3-and-out on New York here. And this is where little adjustments to your gameplay really start to make the difference, and the little minutia start to really show in Junker Goats. Let's see if I can skip ahead to where the action actually begins for these people. Here we go. 59. That's the nice round number. All right. Is this before? No, this is right. Okay. So part of what makes this a very good meta for New York is the fact that Yaki is honestly one of the best Genji players in the league, in my opinion. And we see that here with a, oh my God, just an absolutely high value blade. That really opens the door for Houston. it goes back to what I was saying about that the assassination potential with the Genji. Like, if you have a good Genji player who can get in the backline and really harass the enemy backline, you have a substantially higher chance of winning each individual fight and winning them faster. Because remember, that's a huge part of success in this meta. You need to win these fights as fast as possible because time just ticks down.
Yeah, it really does. And there's so much interesting shit that happens here in this point B push for New York.
Oh God! Here's our first instance of touch the spawn door meta. This was the first time we saw it this weekend. Was this fight here?
This was the second. So they did it. We just skipped it. They did it in Midtown too.
Okay.
But yeah, so this has been Houston's look. Excuse me, I died, but I'm back now. This has been Houston's look. Is like you get those first picks, and then you walk your team the whole way to the front door, and you just butt hump the spawn door. And this is bad. This is bad manners, and this is bad gameplay, because touching the spawn door works really, really well until you lose somebody, and then suddenly you're staggered to death. And it happens not right away here. Houston gets away with this for about 90 seconds before New York kind of pulls it together. And this whole time, like, Houston is using ults to hold them in spawn, while New York is standing in spawn, getting free healing, farming ults. It's just a weird move, especially because I think there's a lot of value in this meta to a full court press, right? Like, if Houston backs up and you play the point B choke, right? You play stairs, you play corner. There is somewhere worth holding where the stagger isn't going to be so egregious. But like, your spawn advantage or disadvantage is so bad when you're trying to hold the spawn door, and New York comes back so quickly that I see next to no viability in touching the spawn door, especially on hybrid and escort.
I mean, it's just such a high risk, high reward strategy at the end of the day. Like, we saw it work a little bit with Washington, but the minute it stops working, it really stops working, and it throws off. It does throw off a lot of the natural respawn rhythm that happens with teams, and it's very easy to stagger. It also pisses off your opponent, and like, I do believe that that their choice to hold spawn the second time, just like, New York had enough, because it's like a switch flipped from the minute they broke out, because this next series of captures goes by pretty quickly. Obviously they finish the map with a substantially lower time bank. I think it's something like a minute,
14 seconds.
Yeah, after the adjustment for both teams, it ends up being 1 minute to 4.5, like something like that. No, it's almost 5.
4.5, I think.
Yeah, it was
4:44.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Yeah, it's just like a massive time bank for both. But all things considered, like, this changed their rhythm, and Yaki just starts to go absolutely insane. You know, he's one of those players that for a while was either all or nothing. Like, he would either find all of the value in the world or none of it. And for the rest of this match, we just watch him find all of it. I do think for a large portion of their success right now is off of his shoulders, effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I don't think that New York wins this game without Yaki just like popping the fuck off. I mean, Flora played really well. Kellen played really well. Ansunjae played really well. Like, there's other people on this New York team, but like, holy shit, Yaki. There's that really good soundbite from Achilleos, and I don't remember what game it's from, or I'd tell you, but there's that really good soundbite from Achilleos where he says, "This man is insane today."
Yeah.
And that was all I could think of for Yaki this whole time. I mean, like, they go into point C with a $1:22 left, and they finish in almost a minute. It takes them 68 seconds to walk through point C when Houston had 3 ults online. Going into point C, they had not only Blade and Rampage, but they were really close to Bob, and New York just cuts them down.
Oh yeah, they steamrolled that point. They fully steamrolled that point, and it's largely because if you watch the whole sequence from start to finish, Houston often finds they found the first pick early in the first fight, but immediately Yaki responds by taking out Doge. And that is enough of a high-value difference maker to just keep their momentum going. And then Yaki with another 3-4-man Blade after that. It's just, the man's unstoppable. Like, the value that he found on this map is exclusively why the momentum shifted for them. And we're going to talk about that more here as they... I just love how the casters spoke the reverse sweep, at least the beginning of the reverse sweep, into existence, because they said it would have to be a catastrophic, unheard of bungle for Houston to just waste an entire 4-minute time bank. And my goodness,
They sure did.
This was honestly one of the most insane things I think I have ever seen in the Overwatch League, at least as long as I've been watching. It's just remarkable. I don't even think, let's see, round 3, they cap point A. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Do we need to watch Houston, or New York's push here, or should we just watch the hold? Because I feel like the hold is more impressive than the push itself.
Go ahead and jump ahead like 30, 45 seconds for me.
Okay.
Because I really just want to watch who was it? I want to watch Kellen and Yaki pop off again, and they sure do. Kellen and Yaki push this cart in overtime themselves, and it's awesome. Like, the cleanup around the fountain was really, really good. Kellen had a really awesome, like, turn and kill rampage that I think is actually still coming up here in a second. Like, this was just a really good attack from New York, and I do think the one downside of Jotes is that it is not easy to run defensively. I mean, it's just not a comp meant to be defensive. This is a hold W comp, not a hold D comp. So I think
S.
that...
You mean S.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
That's what I said. So I really I really think that New York's attack looked good here, but what is more impressive to me is that they held for almost 5 minutes on the same comp. And you're watching on our screen, if you're watching the VOD or you're with us live, you're watching the attack come to the end for New York. But remember this place on the map, because you're not going to see this golden box of victory for a while. And that might surprise you.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. It is not a defensive comp in any way. Even your defense has to be played with some amount of aggression. And unfortunately, that again, it highlights issues within team comps themselves, because some teams are not exactly conditioned or set up for this kind of defensive action, because you know, a lot of teams we saw, especially with the Sigma, and even in the quasi like rush that we had earlier in the season, like it's far more laid back, far more just area hold, area denial This is very much get in your opponent's face and just start swinging, quite literally in a lot of cases, with all the axes and flails and whatnot.
Yeah, it really is, man. I think that we don't see it at all in this game, but what we saw out this weekend was a little bit of variance on the Jotes meta in the support category, which I would argue makes it not Jotes, on defense from a couple of teams. And we saw a little bit of Ana Zen coming in for the Brig Lucio, which I got to be honest, I really, really liked. I don't think that it was run super well, and it's absolutely map dependent. It's not viable in every situation, but I expect us to see Jotes for another week. And then I'm guessing by the third week of this phase, a lot of teams will have locked it in, but there will still be some teams really trying to put together something to break this meta. And from the outside looking in, it appears to me as what you need to break the meta is a hell of a lot of poke. And so I don't hate the Ana Zen. The anti-nade is pretty good, especially if you can combo that with a commanding shout. You know, if the commanding shout, I think, gives a heal bonus to Junker Queen. Like, I think that she heals more after she shouted from support players as a passive. And if that's true, then, you know, you give Junker Queen Harmony Orb and you never have to look at her again. She's just going to live forever. So I think that there is value to a pokey or distance comp. I don't think any teams have really found the right way to do it yet.
I think the biggest problem with that and would be my guess. Like, we talked about how Overwatch League tends to go towards the least difficult comp with the most effect. Basically, how do you get the most value with the least input? They go towards what's simplest, and I think where this meta in and of itself is going to just kind of stick for the most part and for most teams is the fact that it is just very simple. It is hold W, don't die, play with your team, focus target, done. Like, where Zen and Ana tend to fall behind, like, Zen and Ana is a broken comp in and of itself. You'll probably still see it highly in ranked when Overwatch 2 launches, because it'll be easier for randoms to pull off than a GOATS meta. But where it starts to falter is the lack of AoE in general. Like, you have to spread out a lot more, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but when you're going up against a GOATS comp, that kind of spread enables your team to get picked off a lot easier individually. So I do think we will see some other attempts to break the meta. I am hard-pressed to predict that it'll actually hold any water, because it's going to be so hard. Some of the better teams might be able to do it, but it's going to be so hard to find the value out of a comp that's not this. Basically, you'll have to play it flawlessly, is what I'm saying. If you don't play it flawlessly, you're just going to get steamrolled.
Right. Yeah, so we're really getting into the meat of this hold on our VOD screen that we're watching. So if you're watching with us, you're watching the VOD back, turn your eyes to the screen now, because what New York is about to do is real rad.
Yeah.
I love that they took so much time off at the doors and didn't get greedy, right? Because I think if you switch this situation,
High Value Bob.
High Value Bob. If the Outlaws had attacked first and they were defending New York in this situation, I think Houston would have gone to the spawn door. And that's wrong. I don't think that's the answer. I think holding at chokes with the Jotes meta is way better than trying to touch the spawn door.
It just favors your respawns, because this is such a volatile meta that like I said, high risk, high reward, but it's more of a risk, especially when you're down. Like, if you're down bad in a match, like, it's such a higher risk at that point. You know, if you can play around and see if it works, sure, but holding the choke is generally the better play. And I think New York played that corner perfectly. They didn't allow Houston to take any height above them. They controlled that corner. They played around that small wall on the corner very, very well. And then what really, really stuck out to me was how patient they were with their ultimates. There was no, like, basically group dump, if we will. There wasn't a group, like, they baited out certain ultimates and then waited on their own, and that ultimately is what won them the fight. Pun not intended. But this was the start of a momentum shift. Like, obviously not out of the water yet, but we saw some little cracks in the armor of the Outlaws, and a little bit of the Houston difference, shall we say? Always Houstonable.
It is Houstonable, baby. It is Houstonable. So New York picks up. Go for it.
I was gonna say I will never say comebackable. Seriously, I will say Houstonable.
I will absolutely say Houstonable. So like we said, New York picks up this map win here on Dorado. We move on to map 4, which is Push on New Queen Street, which, hey, I'm just going to say it. New Queen Street's a better map than Coliseum. I don't like Coliseum.
Okay.
I like New Queen Street. It's better.
I mean, I prefer it because I'm a hit scan player, but like, it definitely, I don't know. I like the look of it more. I think it's a much more, I like a cooler looking map, not so warm in the tint.
Yeah, man. If I wanted to play Deathmatch, go to Kanazaka. Don't want to play Deathmatch, want to play Push. New Queen Street's better.
All right. So, okay, we've before we get into this, while they're doing all of the things in the background, I don't feel like scrubbing too much. I will ask the question. What are your thoughts on Push as a game mode? Because I know we've heard from some pros that aren't a fan of it. I know some high level players, some streamers have had some thoughts on it. What do you think of as Push? What do you think of Push as a game mode in Overwatch 2 and now in Overwatch League?
Yeah, man. So I was really excited about Push when they first announced it. I was like, this is cool. I like it. Big Numpy robot mode, all in. It's very cute. I love it. I think that Push as a game mode is close. I think that it has some things that need to be fixed and reworked, but I like the concept as a whole. However, there are definitely a few things with Push that I don't love. And they're like two things that I really hate to see. The biggest one for me is I hate a team that pushes to the first checkpoint and then plays 8 minutes of defense.
Okay.
Sucks. It's boring. It's not fun to watch. I get that it's a viable game plan. I will not argue the strategy. It is a good strategy. However, fucking boring. It's really boring and I don't like it. The other thing that I really hate is to see a team with 90 seconds, 2 minutes left in a push map down 75 meters, really get momentum, get things going, and yeah, lose in overtime before they get it back to the middle because they stepped off the bot. So I have two fixes for Push. You didn't ask me for these, but I'm going to tell you. Here are the two ways that I would fix Push, and I think it would make it more fun. Thing one, I think that the barrier should move back. I think if the bot's not touching the barrier should have creep back to the last checkpoint, is my opinion. That would give those checkpoints more value anyway, because right now they don't really do much except getting you spawned. So I would like barriers to creep backwards. Thing number two, I think and this is a little bit complicated, which they'll never do it because it's complicated. However, sometimes games are complicated. I think that if a team is down by more than one checkpoint, so like New York's activated butt scratch, Houston not yet activated butt scratch, and Houston triggers overtime, there should be 2 conditional minutes added.
Okay.
You get a 2-minute bonus, as opposed to going straight into overtime. And then, if you go into overtime, it's overtime like anything else. But you get 2 minutes basically to walk the cart back to the middle before you start trying to do your push. And then, in those 2 conditional minutes, if the team that is ahead retakes the bot and pushes the bot back to a checkpoint, conditional minutes are over. Game's done.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my thoughts.
That's not. I don't hate that at all. I think we can simplify the whole thing a little bit more, though. I think they only really need to do one thing to really fix the mode, and I think it's just a matter of adjusting the spawns. I think there should be more spawn points, and they should move closer. It should work similarly to like an escort mode where the closer you get to the enemy spawn, obviously it does still favor like enemy respawn, but I think that the attacking team spawn should move up closer as well, but closer than they have been, because I think the biggest problem is that trade-off point where all of a sudden you know, the team still has to walk a mile back, even if they do have quote-unquote closer spawn, and so much happens in that amount of time that it opens up the door for just holding the area. And if the spawn itself is closer, I think it would force teams to have to take the fight sooner instead of just playing this eternal defense after they've reached the checkpoint. I could be wrong. Overall, I do really like the game mode just in general. I enjoy playing it. It does get a bit steamrolly, and especially against coordinated teams, it can get drawn out with like this whole mid-fight nonsense. But it also has provided us, especially when it's a map 4 situation, it's provided us with a lot of just like on the edge of your seat kind of play, because especially with the butt scratch stall and all of the like the difference that you have to make up, especially when the gains on either side start to really level out. You have a lot of really like on the edge of your seat moments, especially towards the end of the match. I think it's just a matter of, at this point, figuring out how to decrease the downtime and adjust the strategy in the middle, or forcing a strategy adjustment in the middle.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I do like push. I don't think it's bad. I think it's different. I think it's not 2CP, and that's a win. I guess as a whole, I think right now for me, it's really map dependent.
Yeah.
I really enjoy watching push on New Queen Street. I do. I really do not enjoy watching push on Colosseo, because it just feels like watching deathmatch, and I don't love watching deathmatch. And I think it feels that way because of the map layout. And I don't want to say that the map layout is bad, because I don't know shit about game design, and I'm not going to pretend that I do. However, I really like that, you know, New Queen Street has these really neat cut-throughs where you can cut up a set of stairs and suddenly be the attacking team behind the defensive team because of the map layout, or, you know, the subtle changes in elevation. I don't love the big empty hallway in Colosseo. I don't love the bridge in Colosseo or whatever it's called. I just really like New Queen Street. I'm excited to see push grow a little bit more in the game. I hope we get a different push map soon.
I would actually like I would like to see another push map, because I'm getting a little tired of watching just these two. I'll tell you what else. I know we're not talking much about what's going on with the New York game in the background. It's because they've full capped this thing pretty quickly. But I would like to see Capture the Flag, or a variant of Capture the Flag, become a full-on competitive game mode, because there are few more competitive, more team-dependent game modes in all first-person shooters than Capture the Flag. They already have the bare bones of it in the arcade every now and again, and every time I play it in Overwatch, I have a good time, because it is a very, like, it suits Overwatch so well. It is strange to me that it's not actually a full game mode yet. And they're gonna run out of like ideas at some point. They're promising all these different game modes. It's gotta be in the back of their mind somewhere, because logically I cannot imagine how many ways they're trying to innovate the MOBA shooter. But that's just my take on that.
Yeah, I mean, like, dude, at the end of the day, Overwatch is just King of the Hill.
Right.
How many different ways can you play King of the Hill?
Right.
Turns out, like 4.
Yeah.
And actually, it's more like 3. You know, like, it's fine. I don't need Overwatch to do a lot of different things. I do think Capture the Flag would be tight. My favorite arcade game is Hero Gauntlet, and I think they should do 5v5 Hero Gauntlet deathmatch. That'd be awesome. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if the fucking grand finals came down to Torb hammers? It'd be amazing. Everybody would talk about it forever. But
True.
Yeah, I mean, I think push is cool. I think that as far as being as competitively comfortable as Escort, Hybrid, and Control are, it's still going to take a little while.
Right.
But again, it's not Assault.
True.
Never want to see Assault again.
Oh, so true. And that brings us, we've vamped over New Queen Street because honestly, nothing really interesting happened. New York steamrolled that. It was surprising, but New York steamrolled that. Brings us comfortably to round 5, where we start to see some interesting choices being made on the side of the Outlaws. Dante makes an appearance. He has entered the chat, in for in for Doge, which, I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't think that Doge was the problem. Didn't think he was the root of the problem. And Dante has voiced his opinions about playing Junker Queen, doesn't want to do it, and yet somehow throughout the course of this weekend has become the Junker Queen player. I see that, Matt. I see that you have been in the chat. I have not been able to see it. My window is out of the way for a minute, but thank God you're taking care of that. Anywho, we have Dante in for Doge, and Pelican shows us another variant on the Junker Goats comp as he plays some Echo. This is about to start. Let's go right about here.
Yeah, man. I agree with you. This Dante switch is weird. The only thing I can think of is that Doge got tilted. That has to be like Doge got diffed and got tilted and either decided he didn't want to play anymore, or somebody on the Houston bench said, hey, I don't think Doge should play anymore. And you know what? Honestly, like, if that's the situation, if that's why Dante comes in here, then I don't think it's a bad call. However, if you put Dante in because you thought Doge was the problem, then yeah, it's a bad call. Don't do that.
I think right now, I think it's less complicated than that. I honestly think that right now they were trying to figure out who their primary Queen player was going to be. We saw this a little bit too with other teams this weekend as well, and we're going to see it again now that Boston has 2 viable Queen players. They're trying to figure out what works best, and again, I don't think Dante was the choice. I don't think Doge was the problem, but after you go down 2 maps after nearly sweeping them, something's got to change, and they've made 2 here with Pelican and Dante. So I really just think it was them trying to sort it out. I think it was a mistake ultimately. I don't think he was prepared for what New York was bringing to the table, and gonna be honest, don't like the the Echo pick here.
Yeah, Pelican gets a little bit of value out of the Echo Beam, and I mean, like, you do, I suppose with this comp, the idea is that, like, it's a lot of AoE healing. There's not a lot of burst healing outside of Brig Cookies, and so if you get somebody below half health, your Echo should be able to beam them down before their supports can top them off. But this duplicate that he is about to hit, it's really bad. It's really low value, and he dupes Queen, and to me, I was like, holy shit, man, double axe, double shout, like, this is an easy clap.
Same.
And he gets no value out of it. So yeah, like, I think if you just want to shut down Yaki, maybe Echo is decent. It is pretty hard to chunk out an Echo as a Genji, but it was not the move that they needed to make. And he swaps after the low value dupe. He goes back to Genji anyway.
So like it goes back to, again, it's the value within this comp. And with the Echo got some nerfs going into Overwatch 2. And I think current Overwatch 1 Echo is a different story. I think current Overwatch 1 Echo could probably find a strong position in this comp, but I think with the damage nerfs and the timing nerfs that she got, I just don't think she has the burst that exists or that needs to exist in order to confirm quick kills. I just think there's too much AoE going on in general. And the other problem is, to really get full value out of Echo, you need to be in range of that beam. Because if you can get that half health down, the beam still works. The problem is Echo has to get close to do that. And with the Genji right there, Genji wins. And that's and that ultimately is where it falls short. Now, I will say, I remember watching this live, and I remember exactly what I said during the Pelican dupe. When he first hit it and he first got double Junker Queen, I said out loud in my apartment, "Oh my God, that's pornographic. You should not be able to do that." And then right here it is in the video. He gets no value out of it. I was like, "Oh, never mind. That was a bad idea. Just didn't work." So
yeah.
Oh God. In theory, great in theory, awful in practice.
Right, and what's crazy is that, like, so he hits this dupe, he jumps into room, gets 65% of the way to a Rampage. And Rampage is an expensive ultimate. It charges so slow. So, like, I would think, you know, if you are duping Junker Queen, that means Junker Queen is probably at the front of her whole team. So you should be able to dupe, go in there, hit one slash with the axe, hit commanding shout, and a couple shotgun blasts, and you're at ult. And at that point, like, if you've used your commanding shout, your other Junker Queen should have shout back on cooldown, and you've got Rampage. Like, that should be, like you said, a pornographic, unallowable moment. And
Yes.
the fact that Pelican got nothing off that was pretty surprising. I was expecting him to dupe the Genji and go for a blade because, you know, like Genji Dash and Dragon Blade are both so integral to confirmations and getting those first picks in these fights. I was kind of surprised that he didn't go for that. And when he went for the Junker Queen, I was like, psh, of course he would. And then it just did nothing.
Right. And so New York takes the first map, and we're now into technically the match of match points for for New York Excelsior. Houston had to come up with something, and well, they didn't. They straight up just didn't. We started to see just such great coordination, great gameplay from all of New York as well. I can't, you know, we talk about Kellen and Yaki a lot, but really just across the board, this is a New York we haven't seen all season. I do attribute it a little bit to the main support, them finally having a main support. First of all, I like that is so integral here to just everything that's going on in the current meta. But I really think that they've found some pieces that they were really missing, and this is just such a good meta for them.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, Ansun J has looked really good. I think the whole situation with Myungbong was shitty, but like obviously they needed a new main support, and it certainly helped them.
Right.
This control map looks pretty dominant for NYXL.
Yeah.
Like, Houston gets a flip, and because of the nature of Jotes, you can stall points out like forever. But Houston gets the flip with New York already at 95%. So you have to know next fight's gonna be it. New York's rolling in with Overclock and Rampage. Dante hits Rampage early to try and like knock down this attempt. And that's great and all, but you lose an ult and New York just backs out, and they have so much time. At this point, it has gone from this game is Houstonable to this game is being Houstoned.
Yes, and this entire final map, this entire map 5, they just looked more disjointed than they had earlier in the match, and you know, it goes. We keep saying the same talking points over and over and over again because that's just how this meta works. But it's who makes the most mistakes, like who's communicating the most, who's being patient with their ultimates. Like, honestly, all season, New York has never been this patient with ultimate cycling. They have always just dumped it all on the table, and it hasn't worked. They're 2-12 now, I think is where we ended at the end of the weekend. But like 2 and 12. Like, it hasn't worked all season, and now all of a sudden there's a patience from them that we just haven't seen before, and it works. It looks so. It's a good look for them. It really, really, really positions them to be. I mean, they're still gonna struggle against the top teams in the league, but this is the first time that they have looked competent, for lack of a better. There was that brief moment of brilliance against Dallas at the beginning of July, but like other than that, this has been the best look for them all season, and actually in the past season as well. They haven't looked good in a long time, so I'm very much looking forward to seeing what this team brings to the table going forward, knowing what we know now.
Yeah, and I hope that it continues to be a good face for them. The cool thing about Summer Showdown is that it's a standalone tournament, so no league points or previous wins matter. It's, we're just going with whatever games you win can get you into the tournament. So I do think there's a world where New York squeaks their way into the bracket, which would be fun to watch.
Well,
I'd be into that.
Well, what is it? It's 8 teams, right? 8 teams are going to the are going to the bracket for this. So there is a world where New York goes. There's actually right now, as it stands, there's a world where most of these NA teams could go. I think right now, more than it's been all season, it's anybody's guess.
Hey, tell you what, Washington Justice higher up than the LA Gladiators right now. So
technically, yes, you are not incorrect.
I wish it was. I'm not, but I wish it was.
So, with that, why don't we go into some more picks for next week?
Yeah, man, let's do it. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games for us to pick this week.
All right. Let me pull up.
Last week we agreed on everything. This week I'm not so sure that we're gonna agree on everything, and I'm really interested to see if we do.
We'll find out. I am, for one, have a lot less thoughts about this week than I do about the last one. Largely because I don't know what anything's going to be this week because everything's upside down and nothing matters. I need to find my pick'ems. There's my pick'ems. There we go. So, all right, let's just go down through these one by one because there's not that many matches. We only have, because it's a smaller region, every team this time only plays each other twice, I believe, is how it's supposed to work. So why don't we dive into Dragons versus Charge? Go ahead. Kick us off.
Are we doing all of them, or are we just doing the ones in the notes?
We might as well do all of them. There's only there's 7. There's 7 matches. We could blow through these real quick.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Dragons Charge. Dragons 3-0.
3-0?
Yeah.
I'm gonna give.
I have no faith in the Charge. The Charge might as well not even be an Overwatch League team. I have no idea what's going on over there now. Not a fucking clue, dude.
They just flipped their entire roster on its head in the past month. I'm going to give them one map. Because I think there's a world, anything's possible anymore. This next one will be a really, really good game. Spark Dynasty.
So this one is one of our games, one of our official prediction games.
Yeah.
So I have Spark 3-2.
Ooh. See, I'm not gonna agree with you on this one. I'm gonna say Soul 3-2 actually. And here's why. I think Smurf is a more complete tank than Bernard. I know that Spark actually, as I found out this week, because I had to go through every team's roster in APAC because I wanted to see. I know there were some hidden features on here that would lend itself to the new meta, and Spark has a significantly larger roster than I realized. They have a lot of players, but
they have so many players.
But I think that Smurf is the more complete tank. I really truly do, and I think especially if he picks up the Junker Queen really, really well, and if Prophet can really pop off on the Genji, I don't see a world where they have the same problems that they had at the end of the last stage. So I'm gonna say go ahead.
I was just gonna say I'm curious to see who we see on tank for Spark. Like, I am curious if Ligue is gonna finally make an appearance this phase. I doubt we see Gushue, but I don't dislike Bernard. I have a lot of faith in Alpha Yi and Shy, and that's kind of what I'm hanging my hat on. I also think that as far as supports go, Super Rich and Irony have looked fine.
Yeah.
And if you have 2 fine main supports, then it's really all you need. So I think it's really going to be like, can Alpha Yi and Shy diff Prophet, and can Bernard or Ligue diff Smurf?
Right. Before we go into the next series of predictions, I am going to do like one overarching thing, and because pending any major surprises, I think the top 4 teams in APAC are still going to be the top 4 teams, and also I think it's going to be substantially closer this time around because each one of these teams has an ace card in the new meta that could really factor into how they all stack up against one another. So with that said, Dynasty versus Chengdu, Dynasty 3-1, maybe.
That's what I said. I said the same thing.
All right. Spectator Diff stamp of approval.
Yeah, man.
Dynasty 3-1. I don't think there's much else to be said about it. Looking at Chengdu's roster, I don't see any real aces that are going to give them a big upper hand here.
Nah, not really. I mean, Chengdu's been one of the really hit or miss APAC teams. Like Chengdu and Philly both have been like, I don't really know what they're going to do any given week. I agree with you. I don't think Seoul's going to look as rocky in this meta as they did in the last playoffs. So I think Seoul, Spark, Dragons kind of a toss up. Chengdu, Philly, might get a win, but I'm not going to bank on it.
Yeah. Dragon Spark. I have a tough one with this one as well. I like the Spark, though. I do like the Spark for this one. I think it's going to be another 5-banger 3-2.
Yeah, I went 3-1 for the Spark. I honestly don't really know, but I do like the Spark right now. I think as far as team cohesion goes, I think that they are one of the better 5v5 APAC teams.
Yeah, I think Shanghai, what does it for me with Shanghai is their support line. Lee Jae-gon is very, very, very good. And I think if they can get the coordination together for this new meta, I think their supports are really going to shine. So that's kind of where I stand. I don't think there's much else. I don't have a lot to say about the APAC teams for this one because there is such a differential in the team quality and because there's so few of them.
Yeah, same.
Fusion Valiant. Go ahead. You start us off.
Fusion 3-2. I have no idea. Dude.
Interesting. I like Fusion. I like Fusion for this. And I'm also trying to make sure that I get clean takes of us saying these things because if what happens this week plays out like last week, I'm making another video. But I like Fusion for this. I don't like the Valiant for this meta at all. I really don't. It's Valiant. I'm going to go 3-0. I think it's going to be just a 3 and out.
It absolutely could be. I mean, I do really like Bellisria. I think Bellisria has a chance to look really good on Queen. Honestly, like, I just fucking crazy shit happening in the Valiant camp. Who knows who's getting paid, who's playing this week? I don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm still kind of waiting for Valiant to just like, come in and live up to something, but I don't know if it's going to be this week or not.
I think there's a world, especially in this meta, that especially if like Bellisria picks up Junker Queen really, really well, I think there's a world in this meta where Philadelphia actually win the whole tournament for them. I do.
I mean, Zest has looked really good on Genji for the last couple
and that's
of phases.
why. That's why.
It seems believable to me that Philly could just be stomping them out. Yeah, I think I'm going to take a map away from Valiant on that one.
MN3 on the Ashe has looked very, very good. So like their individual pop-off potential really lends itself to this meta, and I'm very curious. But I think there's a world where Fusion could actually take this tournament. Charge Valiant, Clown Fiesta of the week. I like Charge for this. I do.
Oh, I like Valiant for this.
Oh, interesting. Show your work.
I can't. I can't. I cannot. I cannot show my work. No, honestly, I just pulled up the roster. So I think now that LA has Marvel, there is an actual tank on LA. Because I don't know if you've seen LA's roster. It's just damage and support.
Yeah,
they have like a million damage and support players, and no tanks. Mm-hmm. So I like Marvel as a tank. Guangzhou flipped their roster. Maybe that will help them. Maybe it won't. I really am not sure on this one.
I'm off the goop when it comes to the Charge because I am, after last week, I'm so jaded. I believe that changing your roster has massive effects in this meta. So I'm just going to say that the Charge are going to look better. Not best, but they're going to look better. And I'm going to stand by that. I'm going to give them 3-2. You say that Valiant, and you say the Valiant, and I think that's fine. We're allowed to disagree on this podcast. Besides, someone's got to win.
Game of the week.
Someone's got to win.
I mean, somebody has to
in our Pick'ems lobby. And so last game of the week, Fusion, Chengdu. Oh, God. I just said all the nice things about Fusion, but this is exactly the kind of match that they would lose.
Oh, no, man. I think Fusion 3-1.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to give it to Fusion. I just say this is exactly the kind of one that they would lose. And I'm going to also give it 3-1 because, again, I stand by what I said. I think they look really, really good in this meta. Or they should look really, really good in this meta. And that's going to wrap up our predictions. We do have one more segment that I forgot to make a card for, and it's not in the show notes, but we talked about it. And that new segment is, did we beat Todd?
Wait, hold on. You don't want to do any of the NA predictions?
Wait, are there?
There are NA games this week. Just scroll down on the Pick'em site.
Oops. I could have sworn that they were on 2 separate weeks. That is my bad. But you know what? We're gonna do the NA predictions. We're gonna run that back really briefly. I didn't say any of that before. Holy moly, this is gonna hurt.
Here, so all right. Instead of doing all of the pick'ems, let's just do the 4 focus matches I've got for us for now, just in sense of time. So my first focus match I have for us: Vancouver Titans, New York Excelsior. First game of the weekend, Friday, August 19th. Who do you have?
Oh, Titans Hopium. I'm gonna go 3-2 Titans.
That's what I have. I also have Titans 3-2.
I really want them. I really want this to be a start of something different for them. And that's a hard thing for me to say because I feel the same way about Excelsior, especially after last week. But you know what? I think Titans looked better against was it Dallas? Was it Dallas?
Yeah.
They looked better against Dallas than I expected them to. And I think this is a match, especially if they continue to improve at the exponential rate that they have been. I think this is a match that they could conceivably win.
I lied to you. It wasn't Dallas. It was Toronto.
Thank you.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. All right, cool. Next focus match for us here on Saturday the 20th. Houston Outlaws, London Spitfire. Both teams with very middling first weeks. What do you think, Brad?
More Hopium. I want London. I want it to be London. I know it's probably against my best interest considering Outlaws just beat the Gladiators, but I want it to be London. So I'm going to give it to London, and I think it's good. Because this meta is the way that it is, I think it's going to be another 5-banger.
Yeah, I had the same feeling. I think the best parts of Houston are their DPS line, and I think their DPS line got diffed pretty bad by NYXL.
Yeah.
I think that the Houston DPS line will likely diff or at least come about even with the London front line. However, I take Hottie in the tank fight over Doge 8 ways to Sunday. I just do.
Okay. I'm totally with that. I'm not looking at the show notes currently. Okay, good. You do have it here. The rematch of the Kings, which is this one we're gonna have to probably talk about a little bit more. Shock versus Gladiators. Who do you have?
Yeah, man. So not only is this Shock versus Gladiators, this is for the record of the longest winning streak in the regular season.
Is this that match?
This is that match. So this would be match 19 for San Francisco to win in a row. And if they win, then they break LA's record. Or is it I don't think it's 19. I think it's 15. I don't remember off the top of my head. I think Shock are going to do it. I have Shock 3-1. Listen, man, I don't know what the hell happened with LA this week, but they got bibbity bobbity bitch slapped. And I don't know that they're going to pull it together to beat the Shock. I'm guessing they're going to pull it together to beat Toronto by the end of the week, but I don't think they're going to pull it together to beat the Shock.
Okay. I'm inclined to agree with you. I mean, I agree that Shock's going to do it. I mean, they just always look better in the regular season in general. They looked outstanding yesterday against the Mayhem. They looked absolutely outstanding. That is probably the best they have looked in a while, just in general, because it was so clean. And I don't know if them playing the Mayhem had anything to do with that. Might have. Not reading too much into it. Glads, I don't think this is their meta. I really don't. I think Queen is so contrary to Reiner's playstyle. And again, it goes back to the whole Funny Astro, in theory, should be the thing that just brings this meta together for them, and he just isn't, because he's so solo driven and so like almost Reddit Lucio focused that it's just like I don't know if they're going to get it together in time. First of all, I do fully expect them to pull it together in some facet, but I'm not so sure about this meta for them. I'm really just not.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think putting Shu on DPS was stupid.
Yeah, they got to stop doing
that
that
again.
They have to stop doing that.
That was awful. I agree with you. I think Queen is out of Reiner's pool, and Reiner does not look good on Junker Queen. And yeah, man, I want more out of Funny Astro. So what do you think? 3-1, 3-2?
I'm going to say 3-1. I'm going to say 3-1. I think as good as the Shock look on this meta already, I think they just go quick on them. And we know from past experience that they have the ability and the tools to do just that. So, especially this early in the split, I think 3-1 is very reasonable.
All right.
Yeah.
Our last game of the week. Two teams that went 0-2 last weekend.
God.
Paris Eternal, Atlanta Reign.
Reign 3-0. Paris looked like crap.
Ooh, wow. Okay.
I mean, Atlanta didn't look good either, but Paris looked like absolute garbage.
I gave Paris 2 maps.
Did you really?
I think it goes to 5. I do, because man, Atlanta looked like dog balls, bro. Atlanta looked so bad this weekend. Like, you could see Kai getting angry. Like, when you can see the lines in Kai's forehead, you know it is not Atlanta's meta.
It's true.
And this is not Atlanta's meta. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Gator this weekend, because Hawk does not know how to play J Queen. Like, I think it's gonna be rough. I sat and looked at this for a long time, and I was like, I think Paris gets a win. I think Paris might do it. And you know what? By Sunday, I might change that, and I might flip it to Paris. But right now, I think Atlanta will pull it out barely.
Okay. I'm gonna stick to my guns in this. I'm gonna give Paris a map, because it is still Atlanta. God, those are some good points, but one of us has to be wrong in all of this, because like we've got at some point we have to start bridging the gap in our own little bracket. So like I'll take my L's if that means I have to.
Well, it's all for us this week, coming down to the Hangzhou Sparks Seoul Dynasty game. It's the only thing we disagreed on.
Yeah, so like I mean that's fair. I mean, have you seen the other, like I guess you can't really see it I've been filling out the rest of my bracket while we've been doing this.
Oh, okay. Here, hold on. I pulled it up. Let me look real quick.
Yeah.
Yep. I have Fuel beating Toronto. I have Justice getting a second map, but still losing to Florida. I have Boston only getting 1 map to Dallas. And I have Gladiators beating Toronto. I don't think Toronto beats Dallas and LA this week. However, there's your clip for the video.
Yeah.
This is the intro of the video for next week. It's me right here saying Toronto doesn't beat Dallas and LA in the same weekend.
Okay. No, I'm fine with that. Like I'm taking some of these. There's a chance I might change my mind on a couple of these, because I have to think more about 2 of them in particular. But yeah, we have our own bracket going on in the background. Someone has to be wrong. Goddamn.
Yeah, it's so true. All right, let's talk about that last segment that you briefly previewed earlier.
Yeah, I spilled the beans on, dropped the spaghetti, and
it's been fumbled. It's on the ground, but we'll pick it up.
Did we beat our friend Todd's dumb bracket?
We didn't. We did not beat our friend Todd's dumb bracket. Okay, so here's the thing, friends. you, the video watchers and the audio listeners, we have a leaderboard for our group of friends that we play Overwatch with. Not many of our friends really care about the Overwatch League. They just play Overwatch with us. However, our one buddy Todd, every time we do a leaderboard bracket for pick'ems, just goes through and puts 3-1 for everybody. Top team gets 3, bottom team gets 1. This time, not only did Todd do everything 3-1, our buddy Derek did everything top team gets 3, bottom team gets 2. Right now, in our bracket, Todd is in first place, Derek is in second place. I'm
mad.
in third, Brad is in fourth.
I'm so angry.
The killer, the real kicker is, are you familiar with Overwatch League Stats, the Twitter page or the website?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Overwatch League Stats also hosts a leaderboard, which I am a part of. And I'm not doing very well now either. However, if Todd was in that one with all of the statistics nerds who really like numbers, Todd would be tied for second.
I'm so angry.
I'm furious.
I have
dude.
never been angrier about anything in my life.
It's the worst. It's the worst. So we will be back next week to let you know if we beat Todd and Derek. Boy, I hope that we do.
Oh, and with that, that's going to do it for us for today's episode of Spectator Diff. Matt, take us out.
Absolutely. Again, please subscribe to us here on YouTube, or if you're listening to the audio show, subscribe on your podcast app of choice. You can follow me on socials at MC_DJ_MC.
And me at LastCall_gaming.
And until next time, just remember, we're better at watching Overwatch than you.
Goodbye, everybody.